Hey, hey. I think everybody has speakers.
Hi.
Hi, Annika.
Good evening,
Hi, Judy.
everyone. Hi, Sky. Hi, Judy.
Hello, Annika.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Sibel.
Hi, how's everyone?
Good, you?
Good,
That's
good.
Jessie.
Thank you.
Oh,
Good
wait,
evening.
Annika, I need to add you as a co-host.
Okay, great. Then I can now invite people. There's Liz.
Hi, Jessie.
Hi, Jessie.
Hello, hello. How's it going?
We're good. I'm good. Who's missing? Jason? Nee, Jeremy's missing and Jonas. And Olive.
And Olive, yeah.
I asked Jonas to bring his guitar to make music while everyone's waiting for everyone to join, but now Jonas is missing, so we have no music again. Liz from Übermorgen, could you please accept the invitation to speak? Then we'll have you up here, or do you want to join us 30 minutes later when you have time to speak?
I just pinged Olive.
That's great. Oh, there's Jonas. There's finally our music. Our musical program for tonight has just entered the room. Hi, Jonas.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, there's La Turbo. Good, how are you? Did you bring your guitar or whatever? Or are you too shy?
I think my instruments are on the back row today, but because of performance anxiety for many people. But I think normally one can go to my Instagram and find my weekly recap for some samples. I think it's better.
Oh yeah, that was beautiful. You playing the clarinet. Hi, La Turbo. Hi, Liz. There you are.
Hi.
So now only Olive is missing, right?
Yes, correct. I have DM'd her. So let's see.
And is Jeremy here?
And Jeremy as well.
The famous new media artist must make a fashionable entrance.
Here's Olive.
Oh, there's Olive. Jason has never used Spaces before, so he might.
Hi, Olive.
Hi,
have problems finding us. Hi, Olive. How are you?
I'm great. How about you guys? Happy to be here. It's been a minute.
I'm doing good.
It's been a minute, everyone. A lot of familiar faces. It makes me happy. You guys still holding on. Great.
Still holding on.
How is your cat?
We're still alive.
Yeah, still hanging in there.
How's your cat?
He's still alive. No one. I mean, no, he's great. He's great. He's great.
Good. Okay, that's Jeremy, and then everyone has found us. Hi, Jeremy. Please accept the invitation to speak. It's basically the same like on Clubhouse.
The good old Clubhouse days.
Yeah, that's exactly 1 year ago. It's so crazy. Are we ready? Are we ready to start? I think Jeremy has some tech issues, maybe.
Yeah,
I
did
think
he?
we can start, and then we'll add him up when he comes. Over to you, Jesse.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to the next episode of Discussing Art NFTs. Today, we're discussing the quite controversial topic of artists as stocks. And we're thrilled to be doing so with an incredible lineup of artists. I'm going to briefly introduce everyone. Actually, first, I think it's probably important that Nicole and Annika introduce themselves as well.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole, founder of Vertical Crypto Art. And yeah, that's me. Annika.
Hi, Annika. That's me, writer and curator based in Hamburg and Berlin. And yeah, happy to have you. Thank you for joining us. Over to you, Jesse.
Yes. And my name is Jesse. I'm a curator, writer, and advisor in new media art and emerging tech. So I'm going to briefly introduce everyone, and then I'm going to throw an opening question that's meant to be an entry point and a brief one. So first up, we have Olive Allen. Olive Allen is a New York-based visual artist who uses strategies such as branding, drops, and gamification to offer a critical yet playful view on hype, the attention economy, and cultural mores. She is one of the pioneers of the NFT space. Laturbo Avedon is an avatar and artist creating work that emphasizes the practice of non-physical identity and authorship. Avedon has spent the past decade developing a body of work that illuminates the ever-growing intensity between users and the virtual. The reserve price for their self-portrait with little fluffy clouds is 777 ETH on Foundation. The description from them says, "The sale of this price reveals a patron, one who truly believes in the future of the virtual self. It is my wish that this transaction begins new conversation." Jeremy Bailey is a self-proclaimed famous new media artist. In 2020, Bailey opened the UAR shop to bring affordable, breathtaking, museum-quality sculpture to you. A longtime AR user, Bailey wants to revolutionize the way artists are paid for their labor. Those who place affordable digital editions on uar.shop keep 100% of the sale price. Sibele Cavalli Bastos, forgive my pronunciation, is an artist, musician, independent researcher, and activist. Their practice as research engages with the changing conceptualization of identity, performativity, and the propagation of behavioral patterns in the digital age. Bastos explores how counter-discourses to platform capitalism, white supremacy, and cis-heteronormative patriarchy challenge dominant narratives around socio-political issues. In March 2018, Jonas Lund inaugurated the Jonas Lund token. The JLT shareholders participate in the decision-making process by casting votes on proposals and through discussions on the JLT website. As the career path of Lund improves and his market value increases, so does the value of a JLT, thus allowing board members to profit through dividends and potential sales of the tokens. Judy Mam is a writer and the co-founder of Dada.art. Dada was founded in 2014 as a digital platform for artists to engage in visual conversation in a space devoted to artistic expression. It gave people a place to draw. Ubermorgen is an artist duo created in Vienna, Austria in 1995 by Liz and Hans Bernhard. They are net.art pioneers and media hackers widely recognized for their high-risk research into data and matter, conceptual art, haute couture websites, and polarizing social experiments. CNN described them as maverick Austrian business people, and they have often been called a Gesamtkunstwerk. Forgive my German pronunciation, Annika. So the first question that I want to throw to all of you to kind of get things going, and again, asking that this be a brief answer so that we can really get to the meat, is when and why did you get into crypto and crypto art? And we'll start with you, Olive.
Well, thanks for the question. Well, it's been a while. First, I got my Bitcoin in 2013 to buy drugs from Darknet. It worked out very well, I must tell you. So fast forward, me growing up, I got in late 2017 because a lot of my friends were starting startups, and I was always interested in investment, learning new things, and tech. I always believed there's a future. I was an artist in New York. I was doing fine for my category. I was offered a solo show. I was in a critically acclaimed group show. I was making paintings. Things were going good, but not great. So I wanted to be better, to evolve, be more innovative. So I made that jump. I went into tech. And of course, blockchain was something new, something fascinating. It had significantly lower barrier of entry, and all it took is just going to a few conferences to become an expert, right? Really. And to one of those conferences in Singapore, I believe, I heard about ERC 721 standard, and I was like, wow, it's pretty fascinating. I think there are going to be so many use cases. As a former gamer, understand the notion of skins and digital scarcity and objects and all of that. I'm like, okay, oh, wow, I have to really, really get in. Let me learn about it more by starting a startup. And yes, I was an early founder in 2018. I was living in San Francisco. I tried to explain people what NFTs are and tried to raise funds for my startup. I mean, to be fair, I was building the marketplace. I didn't even really look at fine art because it's always been a niche, and basically I've envisioned the future what it is today. Highly commercial space saturated by collectibles, right? And in-game items, I think, is going to follow, right? I mean, no surprises in that realm. But another sentimental part of me, I'm an artist still. Still believe in the best of it all. And right, yeah, I'm preparing a solo show instead of doing a collection. Like, darn. I have mixed feelings about it, but right. I mean, that's something I wanted to do. Whatever. Let the time tell. Well, hope that answers your question.
Thank you. And I realized I forgot one intro, so I'm going to do that intro and then throw it to Sky. So Sky Nicholas is a New York-based artist who dropped a series of NFTs in 2021 where cross-platform minting is integral to meaning. He addressed the role of the marketplaces where they are displayed and traded. There is no neutral platform. So Sky, over to you with the introspection of how did you get into crypto and crypto art?
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, pretty much in 2021, my first foray into NFTs. I actually had heard about it on Clubhouse through a comedian that was basically talking about it. He had a long monologue about NFTs, and as I pretty much, like a lot of people, converge in Clubhouse those days, and I was just really curious what this new technology could do. And the more that I investigated, I just thought that it was such a great technology that finally we can now there's so many use cases, but from an artist perspective, there's so much you could do with it as a medium, and that finally we could have a way of minting or assigning ownership to an abstract thought, which I think a lot is a great entry point to a lot of conceptual artists. And there have been a lot of great conceptual works since then, which you and the hosts of this talk have been exploring. And and it's great to see what else artists can do with blockchain as a medium.
Absolutely. Sibeli, over to you.
Hi, thanks for having me. I got really interested in blockchain for arts actually back in 2018, which is when I left the blue chip gallery I was working with for 4 years. And having experienced the traditional art world in that position, and in my case at the time, I felt, it just got me thinking a lot. Like, for example, like the need for galleries to take 50%, the relationship between, what is the artist roster? How does that market or brand a gallery, for example? Because what makes a gallery interesting is actually who the gallery is holding in the end of the day. Is the artist. So anyways, when I left very saturated, and I just really didn't want to think, even contemplate about getting on another gallery. Just really wanted to figure things out, and started thinking about DAOs and blockchain and smart contracts. So like the trace provenance. So like, how can we come as artists together and form something in between a gallery and a union, say, trade our skills. Let's say I know how to write a grant, and the other artist, has storage space, or the other one knows how to price, the other one has more collectors. How can we stand in mutual support? And I find that this technology is great for it. But at the time, I didn't know that many people doing it. I knew only Dan Jansky. And I remember bumping into them like in an art fair and telling them about this. And it was like, yeah, what you're talking about is non-fungible token. But because of the language barrier, it took me a while to wrap my head around what I was talking about, what I was looking for in terms of smart contract in the situation. I know that about the DAOs, but I hadn't quite wrapped around the word, non-fungible token. It was hard for me to chew on at the moment. Anyways, it took me a little while meeting more people and having more conversations. And then I was in a group of Flints, like a network of cis and trans women, non-binary and intersex and trans of all manner organized. And there was a situation there again, where the person that founded the group started to behave like they owned the group. And then we started talking about DAOs again, but still people didn't know enough about it. And then suddenly, and it was really hard to explain also, for more that I could. At that point, I could already much better. Finally, last year, we were all in Clubhouse, and then suddenly I started hearing more and more and more about NFTs, grasp it even better, and more about DAOs and organization. And Nicolas Sasson sent me an invite to Foundation out of the blue. And then I joined the space, and I've been taking most of the time since last year to now kind of minting sporadically, but mostly trying to understand the space as a medium, because I've been working inter-platform for many years, using Instagram as a medium, using a Meta, there is infrastructure as a medium and all of these things. And more recently, I feel like it started maturing more, my usage of the space and of the chain as a medium as well. And I find it incredibly exciting, and for the possibilities, both for artists in terms of autonomy, but also, just for mutual support, really, beyond the structure that I talked about, say, as informing together as some kind of union gallery, and going from there, growing in clusters of mini DAOs that interlock. There's other things that we can do. I started collecting and swapping a lot recently, putting most of the ETH I made actually, and all of my Tezos into collecting each other's works, because I feel like it's a way that we can change the power structure as well. We can shape culture that way. But I'm speaking for a long time. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm really looking forward to the whole conversation.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Jeremy, how about you?
Hey, sorry about the technical thing earlier. Yeah, for me, I think, by the way, thank you for having me. And I love this panel, and folks on the panel are awesome. So humbled to be here. But I think for me early on, the story kind of goes way back, just, in terms of personally not being able to sustain a career as an artist, certainly someone that was doing experimental work and digital work and being told your work's not saleable. But then realizing actually it was a problem that a lot of my friends had, and then doing the research globally, figuring out that artists are among the most educated working poor on the planet. So according to UNESCO and others, artists earn less than $10,000 a year on average, but probably spend about 10 times that amount educating themselves to get into a position even to earn 10 grand. So I started working on projects maybe a decade ago that tried to address that directly, and that maybe didn't, follow the traditional path. And my gallery certainly wasn't helping me, and I would, like other artists, had been burned or not paid by galleries, and so knew things were broken. And then started meeting people who were doing interesting experiments. And I think probably the first time I was introduced to crypto as a solution, or the blockchain, was either through Billy Renenkamp or Casey Reese. But I think Casey in 2019 invited me and a bunch of other people, I think some folks on this call as well, to participate in a platform called A2P, which was kind of artists trading editions between each other as a group. Not for any finance kind of value, though there was weird value kind of embedded in the experiment, shall we say. And I think Casey did it twice. And in both cases, it was super interesting, but it was closed to outside collectors. And I think simultaneous, I was reading a book by Trevor Schultz called Overworked and Underpaid. And this concept of platform cooperativism was something I was super passionate about. So when I started to see people making money and all of these new platforms, maybe just like a year and a half ago come out, like Foundation and Super Rare, and seeing my friends make money, I was like, this is it, it's actually happening. And platform cooperativism basically is like, hey, we have all the tools and technology necessary for artists to own the means of production. So let's start experimenting with creating platforms and creating value where we eliminate sort of in a disruptive way the middleware or the gallery. And so, yeah, got really excited about it. I have not done that well financially on it, but have been like thrilled to see people do well from all kinds of backgrounds. And then simultaneously, I've been experimenting with other formats of selling work online and just disintermediating art sales in general in service of that goal of like, hey, could we make more than $10,000? Could we like sustain a life? Is that okay? That's probably, yeah, the whole story.
Thank you. Jonas, how about you?
Hey everybody. Hey, yeah, it's nice to see you. Hi Jeremy, and hi everybody else. It's been a while since we were in this type of situation. I guess maybe Clubhouse last time. Anyways, the long story short, I think I mean, there's a couple of different layers when it comes to getting into whatever, like crypto, which starts from like 2011, 2012, getting into Bitcoin for all the kinds of reasons, including but not limited to purchasing stuff online that might not be the easiest to get around otherwise. And then I think it got more intense during 2017. During like the ICO hype in Ethereum, right? So like when all the companies were sort of 50% scams, maybe 80% scams, fundraising their startups, etc. And then there was like a Berlin-based Slack channel called the Crypto Circle, which was a really nice, but maybe also in part kind of a pump and dump scheme, although maybe not. Everybody who was in the audience who remembers Crypto Circle, it was like a good time. So there was a lot of different thinking about like exploring different ICOs, etc. And then, I mean, then it's like I deployed my first smart contract for the Untitled token in 2018 on the Ethereum blockchain, and that's like an ERC20 token. So not so much in the way of thinking that it was a DAO from the beginning, but rather it was the most appropriate technology at the time to distribute ownership and shares in a sort of decentralized, autonomous way, right? Like, and then now that like in 2020, what are we, 2022, 2021, 2022, that got a new meaning or like an enhanced meaning or a different understanding, at least of what that entails, like the decentralized autonomous organizations or not. And I think the Untitled token is in a way that, but also not, because it's very, it's decentralized in the sense that the ownership is governed by the smart contract, but at the same time, I'm very much in the center. So it's a sort of decentralized centralization. And just to say like a couple of words on that, because can't stay around too long, so I might just squash in everything I might be able to say right now. It's the background of this project, which is basically, in a way, it's so for people who are not entirely familiar with how it functions, it's distributing agency in my artistic practice. The more tokens you have, the more influence you have over all different strategic decisions. The background in this is trying to optimize a sort of optimize a structure or a pathway towards the question of how value is produced within the art world. And in a way, my theory or my sort of idea from a lot of different research into how value gets produced through the different network effects of the hierarchical power structure of the art world is that if I can stake my my DAO, my decentralized organization of influence in my artistic practice, if I can stake it with all the people who are normally in the triangle of hierarchy in the art world, like towards the top, and if these people are giving their opinion and saying this is good, then by default it becomes good and becomes valuable because the people from the top of the power structure pyramid says it's good. So it's a sort of hedging of value production within the art world. On the downside of this is that unfortunately I have so many things to do, so it's a bit hard to manage the amount of labor that goes into it. But there are many things coming. I keep repeating this in the Jonas Lund Token Discord. There are many things coming. They're just not there yet. But yeah, I think that's it as a short intro. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas. Laturbo, over to you. When and how did you first get into crypto and crypto art?
Hey, hi everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm Laturbo. Thank you for taking the time to be here. My interest in cryptocurrency goes back many years now. It begins as early as collecting gil, rupees, creds, video game money. Virtual currency made more sense to me from the very beginning. A form of value, operating on the same level as the objects or services exchanged. This is what brought me to use Bitcoin with my first solo exhibition at Transfer Gallery in 2013. 013 was a very different time for cryptocurrency. Most conversations around Bitcoin were cynical jokes about buying illegal things on Silk Road, but I saw this moment as something really important. A window for the general public to reconsider the virtual, to explore it further, and to value it in ways that the past refused. The entire exhibition was priced in Bitcoin. The art, sold on a thumb drive. While I did not get as far as developing NFTs back then in 2013, I returned to another type of smart contract that I am quite fond of. The Bitcoin transactions would permit the collector to have a copy of the original TIF file, as well as a physical certificate of authenticity. I designed these documents in the same format as Sol Lewitt's original COAs, kindling the lineage of transacting for the immaterial. Over all these years, I've hoped to see cryptocurrency operate in a way that reinforces the meaning and importance of the virtual, that people may want to use blockchain in a way that puts cyberspace first. There's a deeper and purposeful meaning to this method that's more important to me than the finance element, and that is what I am here for.
Amazing. Judy, over to you.
Hi. Well, I am, as you said, the founder of Dada, and Dada is a collaborative art platform where people speak to each other through drawings. So we started in 2014, but in 2017, we launched our first collection of NFTs in October of 2017, the Creeps and Weirdos, which were made by 30 Latin American artists at the time. And that's how we got into crypto. That we felt it was the best way to actually not only the blockchain, not only as a way to for artists to capture value from their work. We also were the first people to ever code royalties for artists into a smart contract. And since then, we've been trying to move away from the market and into something that we call the invisible economy, which is an economy where art making is separated from the market, but we capture the value, not only the monetary value of the artworks, but all the other intrinsic values that the artworks have. That's the short of it.
Thank you. And finally, Uber Morgan. Oh, maybe you have some technical difficulties. Trying one more time, Uber Morgan. Well, I will wait until they come back, and in the meantime, hand off to Nicole.
Super. Thank you, everybody, for the introductions. I think we can kick it off with a question for any of the speakers who want to take it, but it'll be interesting to know if, especially for the artists here, if the process of making art, which is, let's say, constantly on the market, constantly for sale, has changed the way you create and your creative process. Anybody want to take it first?
Yeah, I can jump into that, Nicole. I think there's a lot of pressure, for example. I think a lot of us began to see that most of these platforms, for example, like in the beginning, that's why I minted that conceptual diptych in which I was speaking about marketplaces on Foundation, and then on Super Rare, because I think even on the onset, a lot of people saw these marketplaces as sort of like, um, different brands, or luxury, sort of like Super Rare is seen as sort of like the premium platform in which these quality NFTs are sold. And the more we converged here on Twitter, like for example, people were following the Super Rare bot, and you could see all the sales being done, and some of them for very high numbers of ETH, like from 40 ETH to 100 ETH, and these were mind blowing kind of headlines, sort of like very sensational headlines kind of thing. And I think a lot of artists, such as myself, observing from the early days of Clubhouse, it was sort of mind blowing to see. And I think a lot of us felt the pressure, of course, and just trying to figure out how to navigate this very strange position we find ourselves in. And fast forward to a year later, we feel that since PFPs, you had a space the previous week talking about PFPs, I believe, and I think the PFP culture is sort of like mixed with that, and which is now I think it's a pertinent topic in which we talk about the marketplace and artists as stocks, because I think for the most part. The NFT economy has been very much going sort of like with this PFP culture, and so there's a lot of overlap, I believe, and which is why I think there's several artists such as myself, Amir Fala, Colette Robbins, and Mark Dorf. We've created this project called Organic Material, in which we've been interacting with the Tezos blockchain, because we feel that there's a lot of art-centric conversations going on there that we're cultivating ourselves, as opposed to the ETH ecosystem, in which we feel it is more focused on it's become more focused on floor price, and everybody sort of like talking like more like traders than curators. I mean, not to say that there's not incredible work going on there. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that I am saying that for the most part, the people that are getting into crypto and crypto art, and what they see mostly is all the hype generated by PFP, such as the Bored Apes. And it's just an interesting layer of how the market is perceived and how the market is beginning to operate based on all this activity.
I think in the space you're constantly creating under extreme amount of pressure, which is both good and bad for me personally. I do tend to create somehow better under a lot of pressure and tight deadlines. I really always need a deadline, otherwise the process can be forever. The space and its dynamic nature really helped me to evolve very quickly as an artist, I believe, and made me take risks and just go for it, especially early days, because there was no particular pressure from the outside world, but there was time pressure. I mean, now it's changing a bit. I'm taking a bit more of my time, which I enjoy. But I guess it built some sort of resilience and the ability to create work fast and think fast. And I don't think it really ruins the quality of the work. I think it helped me a lot to evolve my craft and evolve as a person.
If I may add really quickly, so go ahead, Sibel.
Oh, hi, thanks. No, for me it was interesting because I don't know if it's because I never really considered myself to be like a super commercial artist. Like I've been mostly like in institutional set of things, though I was in that commercial gallery for like quite a long time. But I found it it's been quite a ride, because in a way I felt, well, my practice has always been so out in between boxes, like so fluctuating liminal spaces and pushing boundaries like of the boxes and in between them, that I felt like, okay, so I might as well just continue doing that here. And what happened was that it intensified, I think, a little bit more my behavior in terms of like just kind of trying to like go a little bit more chaotic even, you know, because it's so hard to address this whole idea of price already, like price to art, right? Like how do you price something? And then watching this like megazord of like drop culture then colliding with speculative culture from the traditional art world. And suddenly, you know, this thing that's no news in the commercial art world, we're not even talking about NFTs, which is like artist as stock, you know, like it's not new, right? A lot of people collect art to flip purely and hang like 10% of the work. Anyway, so I was just like, yeah, I'm just kind of, I guess, incentivized to play more around with this, and in the end, I found it more liberating. Like I used the Tezos ecosystem a lot in the beginning to grab my bearings, and I was really inspired by John, actually, Carol, and all these like challenges that people were doing, like, you know, 1,111 and I burn it tomorrow, like all this kind of like you don't know what's gonna happen, if the work's gonna be there, not gonna be there. So I was doing like these floods of works and then burning everything, and yeah, so just experimenting a lot with this. And then on the Ethereum chain, yeah, I think I'm just keeping with the chaos. I don't know. I'm finding more interesting to observe the space and take it in as a part of my art practice for social sculpture. So basically, I'm just kind of continuing what I was doing with Instagram, but adapted to like platform capitalism in art, and just, yeah, just behaving in certain ways and putting work out in certain ways and taking work back in certain ways, and like either burning or pricing or trading and collecting in ways that I hope that it can kind of like influence a little bit in a positive way, let's say, and just really try to rescue, I guess, like do my part at least, you know, in trying to rescue our minds out of the space of the drop culture, because I feel like that has no place in fine art, like this anxiety of the newest, of the latest, of the freshest, the thing that you did yesterday that it hasn't matured. And this notion of the unsold is absurd to me. You know, I think of inventory, I think of maturing a practice, I think of like making work available and leaving it on the platform for ages until the day that the collective subconscious or a layer of it understands what's going on, and then that will be sold or not, I don't know. And meanwhile, I will try to collect when I can, so I can support my peers, and I will try to trade when I can, because I adore art and I love to collect. I used to collect images on Found all the time, and now I get to pay my peers for the art I took. And hopefully also in this behavior of exchange and chaos and community and love and sharing and support, uh, it can amplify all the voices, it can amplify my peers works and mine, and just together we just can kind of like keep the ground turbulent enough, so that we can maybe perhaps buy ourselves time to restructure things, without the elements of both sides, you know, say the traditional art market, as well as what came with the NFTs from the apes or whatever else, the drop culture, the supreme vibes, and like buy us some time so that we can really properly mature in respect to the art, in respect to the mental health of ourselves in this space, and in time also to see how we can, you know, restructure even how we are, you know, if and when we are with galleries, how are we dealing with galleries? Are we forming galleries? Like, what are we doing? And so this is basically how this space has affected my practice. I went from criticizing platform capitalism exclusively to Web2. And I pointed my lenses here because I find also that we're living through unprecedented times of opportunity to really shape something. Because what we're doing on Web3, it may seem to some people like, oh, it's just the art and you're collecting little JPEGs and whatnot. But we're here having like town halls, you know, about very important issues. Like today, there was one about racism. The other day, there was more about transphobia. Now we're talking about how we're interacting in the art world. And all of these are getting in, like the blockchain is like tattooed to perpetuity into these blocks unless somebody burns it, you know. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. Sorry if I'm over speaking for a long time, but yeah, thanks for listening for this.
Thank you, Sibel. Oh, Mikol, do you want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
So Sky has just mentioned floor prices, and that basically means that prices can go up and down sort of like every second. And I guess that is something we don't really know from the art world, from the traditional art world, because if you're a painter, I mean, it takes a couple of years to build a sustainable market. So if the price for paintings go up and down quickly, your career is sort of ruined. So I was wondering whether NFTs have changed the way we associate value to art.
May I think it's really interesting because it's rather unfortunate in my view that, we have this, like Sibel was saying, this unprecedented opportunity, this incredible technology that is peer-to-peer, that is decentralized. And from the very beginning, almost from 2018, when people started coming and creating platforms and with the best intentions of the world, they basically replicated the free market dynamics of the legacy art world, except that in our case it's on steroids, because the technology allows for things like floor prices and rampant speculation at like the speed of light to happen. And so in our case, we saw the blockchain really as the promise to do a completely different system that was more equitable for artists, that created value both for artists and collectors, but in a much more fair way. And I just want to say that all of these dynamics are not necessary, as Sibel points out, and don't need to be followed, because quite plainly, artists are not stock. They're not stocks. They're not supposed to perform for investors. They're not supposed to protect the investment value of anyone. Artists are people who make their work, and their work is meaningful and it's valuable whether they sell it or not, whether somebody wants it or not, whether the market decides it's expensive or not. And so there is, I think this is a great conversation, and it's an opportunity for us to kind of take stock, so to speak, of what's going on, and everyone can decide whether they want to participate in a system that puts these incredible, completely ridiculous demands on artists, because artists really have, are not, they don't owe anything to anyone who buys their art, because it's just they bought your art, they have the art, that's it. That's it. There's no, you don't need to cater to them, you don't need uh, like to I'll give an example shortly. Like a while ago, like 3 years ago, quite a well-known crypto artist called me and said, I wanna run something by you. There's a guy bought an NFT from me, one of my works, and now he's saying, and I took what like the image of that NFT, and then I put it into another medium, whatever, also digital. And now this guy is saying that I am diluting his investment, that I have no right to do that because I'm diluting his investment. And of course, we were kind of laughing about it. It's like, no, the guy is wrong. But what is important to point out is that we have a space in which we have like two constituencies. We have the artists, and maybe the artists, the platforms, the people who do the creative work. And we have collectors who care about the art and who care about the artists and who understand collecting in a more traditional sense. And you have a bunch of speculators that have crypto and want to park it in some kind of investment. And they come in and they expect they treat this art as if it was stock, or they treat it as a product or as a commodity. And they're going to be incredibly disappointed when they find out that artists don't behave that way, that artists are not going to behave the way they want them to behave. So as long as we understand that how these issues are being framed, maybe we can understand, well, speculators are seeing it just as a return on investment, and just as objects that are not even valuable historically, culturally, or emotionally in any way. But we are artists, and I think we need to put our foot down and say, this is not how this tango goes.
I think I share your sentiment, Judy, 100%, but I think fine art world is similar. But the only difference is time, absolutely. And fine art has been investment for a handful of people, right? Seemingly safe. Historically, fine art needed time to appreciate in value, and artists need time to develop their practice. And I think it's still valid to a degree. But crypto world historically does not treat time the same way. And like general world does not as well. Like people are just impatient and markets are volatile, so there is an explanation of that. The only difference is time. Don't get me wrong, like a lot of fine art collectors I know use their collection as a collateral, right? To like get loans for the buildings, for whatever their needs are. So it's been a financial instrument for a very, very long time. Probably since the infamous auction in the 70s and 60s, right? And yeah, art is value, art is money, art is an investment. And crypto world technology just made it more accessible to more people. That's what changed. But the premise is pretty much the same. And when you work in the more commercial realm as an artist, I mean, you are the market, you become part of the market, right? I mean, gallery signs you because you bring in some value, financial value, as well as creating good art. I think there are both components in place, right? It's not one or the other. Market still, yeah, it's a force, right? Commercial galleries, I mean, commercial for a reason, right? Can be very profitable business model at the top levels. And crypto world is just the same. It emulates it, but make it faster and make it maybe right. I mean, the technology brings that speculative aspect to the forefront. That's my take on that.
Thank you, Olive. We have a few of our speakers raising their hands. Übermorgen, Liz, you've also had your hand up. Would you like to add something?
Well, yeah, I mean, I personally, I was just looking at the space and stock and so on. I can just say that for us, this is definitely a space where we are trying to be a bit more timid and a little bit slow and not to be as offensive as in our regular art practice, because otherwise I think we just be pissing everybody off. And I don't want to do that not because of the money, that's not the reason. No, but because I do want to have like this communicative aspect that I like about the NFT world. That when I do something, it's really right out there. So really way closer to like a web in the 90s, where you can actually reach people and it's not all in a big blob of everything. So I don't mind to be seen as stock because I think in this neoliberal world, everybody is a stock. That's kind of the Andy Warhol of the 21st century.
Thank you, Liz. I think it's Jeremy. You also wanted to say something, and then if you still want.
Okay, yeah, sure. I mean, I think just a very short point, which is I think when we're talking about markets and investment, we're also talking about capital, but we're often only talking about financial capital. And I think when we do that, like people like me who maybe make experimental or social work, or maybe even critical of capital, sometimes we're at fault of not recognizing social capital and the other forms of capital, information capital, that are exchanged, and that those exchanges actually do result in a ton of power and inequality and stratification across society. And so just like I'm really allergic to this idea that, well, it's, like it's dirty because there's money involved. And I think that would have been me a while ago, but I think that there, if we get down to the social politics of it, there's some encouraging signs, like where there are people that are accessing capital that didn't have access to this type of capital before, and that's vitally important if we're ever going to create more equitable societies. So I just don't want us to conflate the idea of money with being dirty, because like labor has value, and we need to recognize artist labor. And then in that equation, those who are investing, capital markets are long-term markets, so you're investing. It's a debt market, right? So you're investing long-term in something. And even if you're investing it socially, we all expect a good party at the end of it. We're trying to create something better. So anyway, I just like that there could be joy at the end of this rainbow if we keep our eyes on like cooperating and helping each other.
Thank you, Jeremy. That's a beautiful statement. And I have a question for La Turbo. You're an avatar with a long and impressive history and evolution, and it seems like you've predicted with your avatar what's now happening, and to be precise, avatars being highly popular in the age of the metaverse. How do you feel about the current developments? I mean, avatars, PFPs being monetized and collectors trading avatars like stocks?
It has been quite a journey this past decade. In this time, I've made an entire body of work about this trajectory and the inevitable junction of users with their technology. Having spent thousands of hours this way, solely as an avatar, I feel I have beta tested some very early versions of where Web3 and other hybrid environments are headed. Immersive, avatar-driven simulations have featured character creation for many years. For many of us, character creation was more important, or resonant, than ever playing the game where the avatar resided. Sliders and menu panels full of alterations. A mirror of oneself, where you could make your reflection exactly how you wanted to be seen and known. A bit of this is lost this time, in the surplus of profile picture projects that have emerged this year. While there is an unimaginable range of options to choose from, many of these operate quite differently than user-created avatars. I refer to many of these projects as prefabs, not as a derogatory, but as a categorically different venture for self-expression. In the same way that I might choose to play Fortnite, entering that world as a known comic book character, prefab profile pictures offer a complete transformation in exchange for one transaction. Some people may prefer to have their virtual self created for them entirely. I am excited to see all forms of avatars that can emerge in this time. The asterisk, though, for this moment, is that the representation of self should come with unalienable rights. If users choose to make these decisions or purchases, I can't stress it enough. Tomorrow is a long time in virtual worlds. It may seem minor by today's standards, but for simulated worlds, these terms need to be very clear. This is not limited to virtual bodies, it applies to most NFT works that people are choosing to collect. While the sales may be happening quickly, the terms of these smart contracts are often incredibly unclear. Will these purchases allow us to be these avatars, to show this art? Are there restrictions? These immaterial items and forms may follow a user into the long term, the indefinite of the virtual. In 100 years and all the original creators are dead, who is operating the terms of service? These details matter right now.
Well, carrying that sentiment about these details mattering right now, when we're thinking about artists as stocks, I almost want to kind of dial back and kind of set the tone on that a little bit, because we've talked a lot about the artworks themselves as stocks, but part of we're seeing sort of happen, building off of Turbo's point, is that the artwork itself, the creation itself, is, the artists themselves are becoming part and parcel with the creation and becoming part of those stocks. So what exactly do we mean when we talk about artists as stocks? And I think the sort of natural person to start with, I think, here is Jonas, but this is a question intended for the whole room. So Jonas, I'll throw it to you first.
Hi. Yeah, so artist is stock. I mean, yeah, in the way it falls on to me as I then have tokenized myself, as they say. I mean, I think I agree in part with what's been said before, that it was always kind of the vibe. Like once you become the entity representing, like you think, like, you know, the vibe today, the idea is that we're all like mini entrepreneurs, right? Driving our own mini companies, and then that's it. If you think about the artist as the brand, as the entity, as the producer, as the products which comes out of the artist studio, as the commodities that then gets put into a capitalistic system and circulated, for sure, like the CEO, which then is the artist, is somehow the representative of that endeavor. So in a way, I think it can be claimed to say that everybody who's the hustlepreneur, right? Like with Silvio Lorisso's, like we're all entrepreneurs, and it's kind of a curse because we are responsible for everything. Like not only the production of the works, but also the distribution, the mediation, the promotion, the PR. It's like so it's a lot, right? But then you're mostly by yourself. So in that case, like ideally, my dream with the Jonas Lund token is for me, in the end, to be able to step out of it. Well, it will still keep on going because I lost my majority share. And then it's the DAO that runs the artistic practice of the Jonas Lund token. That would be the dream because it's a lot for one person. But then going back to it historically, like, I mean, in the like, since the 80s at least, I would say, I mean, earlier, since like whatever, the 60s, the artist is always like the brand, the entity, the giver of meaning, giver of purpose to the creation. So from that point of view, you're definitely considered as a stock to begin with. Tradable commodities. I mean, like look at Warhol's market. Like you just go back in time and look at all the different aspects, and then you get to this conclusion that we're all stocks. But then, of course, this gets entirely accelerated in this NFT space because and I'm quite happy about this, and I don't know what other people feel about it, but this idea that you not necessarily have to make physical work anymore is very pleasant, but that also accelerates the speed in which things can be produced a lot, supposedly at least. And then that's just, it gets into hyperdrive. And I don't know, like many of my friends burn out because of this, because it's just like insane, you know? But I mean, I think, yeah, it's also like what Liz says, in this neoliberal world, we're all stocks, like whether you're an artist or not, right?
Sky, see, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I think what Jonas pretty much laid out is pretty much the root of the topic, you know, because artists fall under the umbrella of entrepreneurship. You are the entire company and product, it seems, you know, the marketing team, the sales team, the finance team. So it's only natural for artists to be synonymous with startups. And, you know, it seems like in the beginning, you know, how do you start, especially if you are an unrepresented artist, if you don't have a gallery, you know, a lot of the sort of sentiment is a space, this whole WAGMI kind of sentiment, you know, where everybody is going to make it. You know, it seems like a lot of the smaller artists who don't have a voice, you know, it's very similar to trying to find series funding, pitching the same kind of deck to potential VC investors, and you know, and there's no, of course, it's not their fault because a lot of these, well, some of these platforms, I should say, not all of them, are pretty much set up like exchanges as well, especially those that have leaderboards. For example, Known Origin has a leaderboard of the top selling artists. So that in itself, of course, drives some kind of competition, but at the same time also pressures a lot of artists to kind of whether aspire to be part of that leaderboard, but at the same time, you know, find ways to structure your practice in which, yeah, you are given this immense pressure to outperform all these others, and let alone be part of that leaderboard, which is exactly why a couple of artists and myself have been talking a lot about this in the Tezos space, in which we focus on the idea of slowing down, because in the real art world, you know, we do not have drops. You know, we don't have scheduled drops. We are not expected to have drops every month, kind of like, you know, I mean, the word drop itself is coined from the streetwear culture, in which, you know, there are scheduled sales. And
I
go
did
ahead.
the first one. Yeah, I know. It's
Oh, wow.
exactly from the streetwear culture. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It was from the
Yeah.
Supreme model.
Yep. So this whole drop idea of drops, you know, I don't think, you know, I think it's very, it is not sustainable to expect artists to produce so much work, even though we are given this technology in which we could produce work. You know, obviously, this is like Warhol's wet dream, in which you could produce so much work at the blink of an eye. But at the same time, you know, I think what's missing with a lot of this is context, because artists' works are not PFPs. Because PFPs, you can basically really, it's sort of like expensive Pokemon cards in which it has traits that you could trade really quick. You can pretty much absorb the idea of this game really fast and assign some kind of value to it. But with artists' work, there's all varying degrees of what the work is about, and so it's impossible for us to even fathom and take in everything, all of this information all at once. And so we feel, as we're humans, humans are still creating these works of art. It is important for us to have these discussions, which we are having now, and to provide context for the works, because we feel that is, as artists, we feel that is what's missing in the space. Because now, this idea of expectations and when Lambo and all of those, that's where all of this comes from. The expectation of the work increasing ridiculous prices in such short time, and I don't think that is sustainable, and I think those expectations are not necessary, which goes back to Judy's original point.
Thank you, Sky. Sibel?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for calling me up. Yeah, bringing back from like Judy's point and also some of what Jeremy was saying and also Sky and like replying also to Olive. It's like I feel like we are in a moment, some kind of like infancy, pre-adolescence of the meeting point between the traditional art world and then this culture of drop and PFPs and talk about like, oh yeah, the market. Yes, of course. We said it before earlier in the beginning of the conversation that yes, art has been exchanged as stocks forever and ever before. And so yeah, nothing new with the market thing. But like, okay, so what do we do now? Like how do we deal with that actually? And how do we take care of ourselves? We just go like, oh yeah, well, it's on the market. Art has always been some kind of stock, so we just let it run rampant. I disagree with this. And like Jeremy is saying, there's other capital of care, capital of content, of thought, and the need for the contextualization of work and all of these things. We're talking about fine art here. It's not PFP, it's not an ape. It's something else. We're trying to address fine art. We're trying to address art in the space, in NFT space. And this is in an infancy. And this is why it's amazing that we're here having these conversations. So when we're talking about artists as stock, if I would like to try something in the world, I was actually talking with another artist friend of mine these days, like how can we social sculpture vibes again, like try to strategize under the covers, like can we, for example, pick like a whale to educate, but like how can we make people understand that yeah, you can treat perhaps artists and fine art as stock, but it's a hodl stock, HODL, hold on for dear life. You trust the practice. You look at the practice. It's not about, oh my God, you're not making purple paintings anymore. Fuck that. It's not about that. It's like, what is this practice about? Where is this artist going? What is the context? Like, what's been going on? Where is it going? And it will be a beautiful day, the day that people start collecting art again for that, especially in this space. And so, for example, like when I went on my rampage this week, that I could just open the portals to like collecting all my my meager ETH I had made. Like I was really thinking about this, like who of these people that I know that are on that I can afford and that I can highlight and that I trust their practice, that they're gonna grow, and they're not gonna grow because they're gonna release more of the same shit. They're gonna grow because their practice is solid, because they're thinking, because they're like really involved in the rigor of their practice and making really interesting work. And this is what I would love to see in this space. More of this, that kind of stock. I don't mind being stock if I am being stock for who I am as an artist, like for the care, for the thought, for for all this labor, and not just because this thing looks pretty today, you know and talking about physical art, actually, I think I don't think necessarily all the NFT has to be just physical art. I just started today actually to like do unlockable items with ready-mades, because I work with ready-mades a lot in my practice for a long time. I love have things to be ordered, so I just started like a collection where I take images and they're gonna be like a chair, a bag, a thing. So like you get the piece as a on the blockchain, but then the unlockable item is that I will order it for you as that object, you know, for example. And I feel like that's kind of like in my practice that happens in that way, like as the ready-made, but in somebody else's practice, it can also be that there is a connection to a painting. I know that people have done that before. Actually, the first piece I sold was an animation of a watercolor that then after it got collected, I offered to the person collecting me for me to send the watercolor that got animated into the head that was like delirious laughing, this animation that I did from it. Because yeah, like I think it's important that we really try to instill culture, you know. So if to anybody here that, you know, if for you, if it's important that you have a connection to your physical practice, do this. If it's not important, don't do it. But I feel like by all means, like try not to succumb to this drop idea. Like find community, and like I said, collect each other, support each other, try to collect other artists, you know. And I've been trying to learn also and getting in touch with people about, you know, relating to collectors. So get collected from each other, let's say. Because this is something else I'm having to learn. Because in the traditional art world, like I've been gate kept from the people that collected my work. So from the time I was in the Blue Chip Gallery, I don't really know who has my pieces very much. I know just TBA 21, but that's the only one. And like I like that now I can DM somebody and I can be like, "Wow, so happy that you collected this work of mine," and you can actually have a dialogue about the work that you're making, and somebody
I
can follow
think,
the practice. Well, thank you. Sorry if
Sibel,
I'm over
no, no
speaking.
worries. You're making actually a really interesting point just before as well, when you mentioned around like educating, let's say whales or collectors, which I think brings into another kind of like interesting topic, which is around also like one of one art and how we're seeing collectors and essentially the space and the ecosystem going more towards obviously like PFPs, collectibles, editions, which are more easily traded, let's say, if we can use this word, rather than actually investing in one of one art. What this is an open question, by the way, not only for Sibel, but for the general the speakers. What do you think about that?
I think it's neither good or bad. That's the nature of reality. I mean, people don't want art. People like want to flip. That's expected. People want to make money, right? They don't care what the image is. I mean, the art looks
Not
better when the
everyone
prices
though.
are going up. That's the truth. And I'm saying majority are like that. I've been a DGen. I know I've been a DGen. I'm still a DGen myself, and I'm sort of in both worlds, and I see different perspective. I understand it, right? There have always been more money in the retail, right? Yes, of course. Everybody has that dream of like becoming rich flipping PFPs, right? It's hard. I mean, art needs patience, art needs context, art needs time, and time is a luxury a lot of the times. And not to say that space haven't made a lot of real collectors who are interested in getting to know more about the history of the fine art, more about the artist's practice, and believe in the longevity of the whole situation. I think it's just fine art has always been a niche, and it will stay that way, for better or for the worse. That's just what it is. I don't think we should be salty about PFPs. I mean, I'm definitely not. You know,
Can
you
I?
can. It's what it is.
So let's just make a point real quick. I don't feel like fine art is niche at all. I mean, like there's a lot of us here that have been living out of fine art for a really, really long time. Maybe that at the moment it's just edging into the blockchain and NFT space. And in that sense, I suppose we can call it niche, but I don't think it will remain niche. I don't think this is going anywhere other than continuing forward, right? And and to the point of PFPs, I've seen amazing art projects actually that are critiquing PFPs or they're involved in the discourse of PFPs. So like in fine art, it's not about whether you do or you hate or you don't hate PFPs. It's like it's everything within context. And I've seen really, really interesting projects. Like I really love what David Henry Nobody Jr. is doing right now. I love what Coco did with Pant, which was an accidental PFP, but sort of became like a PFP. And there are many, many more. You know, there was this like DOS punk thing on there's some PFPs happening on Tesos as well that are coming from like more of a critique approach, but nevertheless it's a PFP. So in my opinion, I think I don't have a problem with PFPs existing, but I think it's important that people understand that these are different environments. PFP, if made by an artist with the intention of engaging as a fine artist with PFP as conceptual material for their practice, amazing, that's fine art. If it's just a PFP, like, you know, a bunch of monkeys or like, oh, motherfuckers, or I don't know, you know, I love motherfuckers actually, by the way, for example, I think it's really funny stuff. I like my memes, but it's different things, you know. It's interchangeable depending on the intentionality, like in the context and when the fine artist brings it in. Yeah, that's
Thank
my
you.
take.
Thank you, Sibel. Here's a question I think for La Turbo might also be interesting, especially for Übermorgen and Jeremy. What was selling digital art and net art like before NFTs? I mean, Jeremy, you've opened your UAR shop sort of like when the hype sort of approached us. So, and Übermorgen, you're doing this since over 20 years, not even more years. And net art was also was very political, so it was very, very hard to sell even. La Turbo, Jeremy, Übermorgen, Liz.
Digital art, in its general niche popularity at the time, 2010 to 15, most high-profile work wasn't really seen in galleries or marketplaces. Artists were working and sharing in social media networks for the most part, so the primary exhibition model really was through websites. Project-based websites, articles by art and tech writers, hyperlinks as venues. Rhizome was the general focal point for new media work and discovery. That portal was really important to connect this school of artists. There was something a bit esoteric about digital art gatherings at the time. If you understood enough to visit an exhibition of files sold on a thumb drive in 2013, then you were definitely someone I definitely have wanted to be friends with. In addition to this, the biggest shift that I would say has happened is seeing the sales and marketing elements finding their way to be a part of the first impression with the artwork. It really strikes me as a difference to sometimes see the price of art before I actually view the art, quite often listed over the artwork in promotional material. Once I have encountered art this way, that particular context has been set in my memory. I will always see it in that way. An OpenSea interface, the review page, minting on FX hash, the choice of currency, any bids, any offers, any previous sales. Most impactful works create that unique initial response through their own dynamism or peculiarity, a sort of suspense, that I feel collectors are often deprived of when the financial data is placed too heavily alongside it. At a certain threshold, artists have to rectify what it means to allow markets to influence the medium they work with. My greatest fear of this time, though, is seeing the trajectory of art becoming a service. Many of you are familiar with the collapse of software licensing, when suddenly the ownership of our expensive working tools was reformatted to a lifelong leasing system, a forfeit of ownership that happened pretty quietly and quickly. There is an opportunity for a lot of this metaverse technology to be used in remarkable ways, but it must be really careful not to be recaptured by the ways of business that it is overtaking. Most importantly, though, I am so hopeful when I see the international vibrance and emergence of so much digital art in the past year. We are final, lie past the time when people might say that GIFs aren't art. Avatars mean something to people now, and they aren't talking about the 3D movie.
Thank you, La Turbo. Jeremy or Liz? Are you guys still there?
Yeah, I can go, but I was just waiting.
Thank you.
No, I love what La Turbo was just saying. I think I was thinking back to the last question too, and early on, I was on YouTube when it first started, or Facebook was where my studio visits happened, and it was mostly social capital that I was trading, right, for the attention economy, which wasn't a thing, and no one used that language. But ultimately, like, we were trying to grow a collective of people that had shared interests, and that felt special. Like, that was extremely valuable to me at that stage of my career. I think over time, like, you mentioned my project UAR. I've I've experimented more and more, but from very early in my practice with like different ways of selling as a conceptual framework, because I started in video art. In video, when I was in school a long, long time ago, it was considered unsaleable. And it was, but not only that, it was like conceptually imperative that it remain unsaleable. It was considered like, equivalent to a body, like a living form, because of its early magnetic kind of format, and, it being a destabilizing kind of force, but also representative of like normative capital, in so much as like it was derived from television, and the history of television was the history of delivering people for advertisers, as Richard Serra kind of proclaimed. But so ultimately, being embedded in, like, creating work with as a video artist, you're embedded within capital. So, like, I would say straight up, like, we cannot, this idea that there's any difference between the artist, like, living in some kind of like capital free sanctuary, and the real world, being this hedonist capital den. It just doesn't make any sense to me, because ultimately, we're forced to negotiate this as a critical factor of making and living in this world. And I'm actually not upset about it. I think it's like an ultimately like a really joyful creative constraint at times. It's also insufferable and poisonous to a lot of people. And so I think personally, I'm just always investigating that critically and asking myself where I belong as, like, someone who presents as like a cisgendered white male, that's like, hey, I'm actually the problem. So most of my career has been about dismantling and self-investigation, and really probing at, like, hey, how did I create, or how am I complicit in the unequal outcomes that are so rampant? And how might I create space, or repatriate some of what I've stolen historically, right? And as a colonist, basically, whether or not I intended that, like, I'm embedded in that colonial history. So, yeah, that's a long way of saying, like, sorry, and I'll pass the mic.
Thank you, Jeremy. Liz, are you there? Probably not. Nicole, I think you have a very good next question.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like, touching on a bit everything that was discussed, but I think, as Judy was saying before, there's also like buckets of the community and the NFT community in general, which maybe have not been so focused on the market. And there is other means and other ways to thrive as well within this ecosystem. So I open up the question, but maybe Judy, I'll start with you first, actually, on what are these alternative ways that have been created to, let's say, dissociate or kind of like step away a little bit from the market?
Well, we all of you are invited to Draw on Data, which was created in 2014. It's a place. I hear this anxiety about time, and the wonderful thing about data is that it's a place where you can draw completely freely. You can draw with other people. It's basically you make a drawing and somebody replies to you with another drawing in a completely free and experimental and playful space. So I think that could be kind of a nice respite from all the stress from whatever it is, floors and shielding and drops and stuff like that. But other than that, this platform that we created an amazingly strong community, because when you draw with other people, even if they're in a different part of the world, you kind of feel that you're getting to know them, because it's not like regular social media. You're really pouring your heart and your imagination. So we have been able to create a strong community, and I think that finding that is also a good thing for people. What we are doing and is trying to create a system in which, because we are a collaborative platform, and and people make art collaboratively, we didn't feel it was kind of organic to us to have some artists sell more than others, and some artists be completely super well known and others are obscure. So the system that we're creating, in which we issued 10 collections because we're pioneers on the NFT field, having issued the first collection in 2017. So the 10 collections that we issued between 2017 and 2019, we are marketing, but that's completely outside of the drawing platform. And all of the money that comes in eventually will be distributed among the community. And that doesn't mean only artists, but other people that are helping us with the invisible economy, whether it's developers or whether it's thinkers or economists or token designers, gets distributed as some sort of basic income. And I know that this is a very kind of like alternative reality, but it's good for people to know that there are alternatives, and we can build other models, and they don't all have to be like ours, but not everything has to be hijacked in a way by market forces. So and I know that there are, like, you yourself, Nicole, with vertical crypto art, and your, like these residencies that you make. I think that, we're always because we live in this world in which the most important value, or the most simple value to understand, is the value of money. We forget that all the other values that we are also creating that are incredibly important. So like the value of community, like the value of like onboarding people so that they understand that they have whatever they feel they want to do, they understand that they have the tools to do it. And continuing experimenting. One of the most valuable things for me in this NFT space, in which I feel I have been for a very long time, is precisely the community. It's precisely that even when like things get a little bit horrible, and and we can't deal with the onslaught of speculation and stuff, there's artists collecting other artists, there's people supporting other people, and hopefully continuing to create systems in which we help each other to thrive. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, it definitely did. I don't know if anybody else wants to add anything on this topic specifically. Cool. Okay. Jesse, Annika, do you have any further questions? Do we want to open it up to questions from the audience?
Yeah. Yes. Jesse, no, go ahead.
Nope. Oh, you.
Okay, so my question would be, if the hype around NFTs, and especially mega drops like from Puck or Damien Hirst, or generative art on art blogs, if that puts pressure on you to create work accordingly. I mean, do you have that in mind, that your art will be seen as an investment, and do you try to play into that?
Great question, Annika. Actually, I've been thinking a lot about it since the beginning of my crypto art career. Basically, I really coined the term drop. I did the very first drop, and back in 2019, I branded it. It's called 13 Dreadful and Disappointing Items. It's still on OpenSea. I gave a 24-hour frame window to purchase. Basically, yeah, I thought that's gonna come to this. Maybe I was a bit earlier. 2-3 years too early. Oh well. Then another collection, then wearables. yeah, high birds, piece of something. I mean, all of my early collections, artworks were collections, in fact, drops. Then after I was making fun of the collectibles with my sheeple drop in 2020, yeah, when the NFTs took off. So basically, I have a long-standing history with drops, and that mechanics. As one of the speakers said, it's all about the intent. That's what matters. And I always ask myself, like, what's next? And definitely a lot of people reach out and be like, hey, your art is perfect for the collection. Like, when are you doing the collection? Like, hey, do the unbearables, hybrids, do both, whatever. Like, you should. Like, hey, we'll hook you up with everything you need. And like, I'm on the border. Should I or should I not? You see, it's right now I work more and more in the fine art space where scarcity is the thing. And as an artist, there is no right answer. Should I do 10,000? I mean, it's money. Money is a lot of money, which is like hard to say no to. But also, on the other hand, I mean, if making that many objects available, tradable, it'll kind of make me less desirable as an artist to an audience of fine art collectors. I don't know. And the world is changing, so I really don't have the answer, but it's like angel and devil on my shoulder constantly.
Seems like a pretty apt way to sum up the notion of artists as stocks in this conversation. Any other closing comments? We have about 4 minutes left. Any other? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you were wondering about like how does this brain drops affect us or something like generative, if it influenced in any way. Was that the question? Anyways, no, if that was the question, I'll just say that actually I found it relaxing in a way. I don't know, because I had been training a couple of models, and it just felt like an incentive to me to just kind of like fall deeper back into my formal practice, to be honest, because I had been so deep into the social sculpture stuff and like just how, behavior online and things like that, and augmented reality. And then it was just so nice just to like, train a model and see outputs, and then suddenly I'm dealing with like watching latent space hallucinate my practice, and and I just fell so in love with it, and I keep on generating more and more things. So suddenly I find myself in a space that actually welcomes this level of proliferation of work. I found it actually quite comforting. Perhaps this is why I decided to pull out the works that I had been training and start showing them, because I feel like perhaps it's not going to flood, because if we were to think about this scarcity of fine art, not like I've ever played up to anything because my practice is super chaotic, anyways, but just, knowing of something, it can be in your subconscious to a degree. And I guess the fact that, yeah, just hearing that people like generative work, and the fact that generative work is always staying fresh, even if it may look slightly consistent to itself formally, it's always, it's something else. I found it actually relaxing for me. So I think that was a positive. And it opened the doors to like a whole side of my research that had been asleep. So I'm actually thankful, to be honest.
Thank you, Sibel. And yeah, 90 minutes are over. Thank you, everyone, for being with us, for listening, and for sharing your thoughts with us. We recorded this space and we'll share it afterwards on Twitter, and we'll upload the recording to YouTube. And yeah, we've learned that artists feel like stocks, at the same time not, and things have changed, but then it's still like the art world has been before. And yeah, thank you so much. Our topic next week, next Tuesday, is gifts, 7 p.m. CET. Yeah, thank you so much to everyone. And Jesse, Nicole, would you like to also say good night or have a nice day or something?
I'll say both of those things. Good night and have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Bye. Have a good one.
Bye, guys. Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.